everybody. My name is Aris. I am a clinical herbalist and biodynamic farmer. I've partnered up with Lazy Acres for the month of July to highlight regenerative agriculture. And today I'm going to give you a tour of my home garden. And we're going to start here, which is one of the many Hugo culture beds that I've created in my garden. And you can't really see much underneath, but this used to be a trench that I dug up. And I filled it with old logs and various materials from my garden. And it's essentially an underground compost pile, which is going to improve the soil quality over time, as well as it's going to help me use less water in my garden. I have a lot of things growing in this bed, such as different types of brassicas, which if you are an organic or regenerative farmer, you will notice that critters like to eat your plants. And I have a few critters that are loving to munch on these plants. So if you see the holes, that is why, but that's a part of farming. I also have some milky oats, which is known as Avena sativa. And these are getting ready to harvest. I'm probably going to harvest them later today. And this is one of my favorite herbs for the nervous system. And when you squeeze it, this milky substance comes out, and that is the medicinal part of this plant. I also have some wildflowers. I have some amaranth, some sunflowers that are going to bloom soon. A few tomato plants, some beans. I have a big patch of calendula flowers that I harvest every day around 3 p.m. or so, because that's when all of the oils go to the petals, which is what you want. I have some mugwort. I have more brassicas. I believe this is borage. And over here, I have a root bed. I have my potatoes. I have 3 different types of potatoes. The Yukons grew really, really quickly, and some of the other ones are going to start sprouting, as you can see here. These are my red potatoes. And this is also a Hugo culture bed, but it's not as raised. So under all of this, there's a lot of branches that I've buried, and leaves and kitchen scraps. And this is a small patch of Hopi blue corn that I planted. And I planted a lot more at a community garden in Santa Barbara, and so this is just what was left over, and I decided to incorporate it in my home garden. And now I'm going to take you to my melons and my cucumbers. And these are still pretty young, but I have squash, I have watermelons, melons, and some cucumbers. I also have some plantain, and this actually grows locally. This is also one of my favorite medicinal herbs that can be applied topically, but also taken internally. It's actually really good for the lungs and for infections. And this is a bed that I am not using right now, so I covered it with burlap to prevent any weeds from forming. And this is my compost yard. So I have branches, dried leaves, and green material that I will use to build a new biodynamic compost pile. This is where I keep all of my kitchen scraps. So I have a bowl inside, then once that's full, I bring it out here and put it in here, and then I cover it up with dried leaves, because you want a proper ratio of nitrogen and carbon. That proper ratio keeps my compost from smelling bad. And then I water it really well, because water also helps that process of composting. I have some kale and some chard, and I harvest from this bed almost every day. So I have fresh greens from my garden. I have more kale. And then the plants in these beds are still pretty young. I have some calendula, rosemary, borage, tulsi, peppers, lemon balm. Have motherwort, St. John's wort, elecampane eggplant, and 4 different types of sages, and my mullein. I have some baby okra growing here, and some hollyhocks that are still young. And I have some tomatoes, and I also have some arugula that I'm letting go to seed because I like to collect seeds so that I can swap with friends. And then this is my biodynamic compost, and that circular pile that I showed you earlier, I actually use all of that to add layers to this bigger compost. And I've assembled this in such a way that I don't have to turn it. I basically just water it really well, and there's really good airflow in every single layer, which is really important for healthy compost because that actually will help the good bacteria and keep bad smells from forming in the compost. And this is another bed that I am saving for later. I'm probably gonna plant some lettuce here once it starts to get a little bit on the cooler side. And then I have my sunflowers, which are really nice to see every morning. I see them from my kitchen when I wake up and make my tea. And I also have a few more medicinals in here. This is where the gophers like to hang out, and I let them come to my garden because they don't really bother me, and they actually aerate the soil, so I find them beneficial. Thank you.